Hello everyone, these are the Topsky F7X V2 Goggles. There were many reviews earlier and I did not have a version 1 review, and GearBest was insistent that they had fixed all the problems and wanted to send this to me. I actually told them no several times, but at some point you just go, okay, fine, we'll look at them. And I have to start off by giving Topsky credit. I was very concerned when I saw these enter the market that it was going to be a short-lived product, and it appears as though they have stuck with it. They have taken effort and energy and put into making updates that they could, and also taking care of some software issues as well. I'm not going to go over every complaint that every review might have had previously. I'm going to take the perspective of a first-time user and also my experiences with that. And when I compare these goggles to others, and I have the camo versions here, which, and whether that's your thing or not, you have to judge. I'm going to be comparing them to the Amway Commander goggles, which I use on occasion and are very, very popular. And I'm also going to be comparing them to my primary goggles, which are the Fat Shark HD3s. And yes, I do use the LaForge diversity module in mine. So that's something to keep in mind when I'm referencing my experiences. So you get a few things with the goggles, and let me show you those items now. Okay, so here's all the stuff you get with it. Some little sort of card marketing materials. Like a quick start guide, tells you where the buttons and stuff are. A little longer instruction manual. We get a charger, and this is the barrel lead for our battery. We get a cloth for cleaning the lenses or glass. We get these red dots, which I presume these are replacements. No, those are rubberized. Maybe for stickers to put on there if you find light leak, but I didn't find any reason to use these. I didn't have any issues with light leak. We get the case, which is kind of nice because it fits all the stuff inside. You could probably have room for other specialized antennas if you want to. But I have the case open here. Let me draw your attention to the cables, because the cables were stuffed in here on the top. And we also have extra foam. Sorry. So thinner foam here. You can put that to the faceplate, and we'll look at that here in just a minute. But the reason why I wanted to talk about the case for a second was, so the goggles are in the case. Approximately like this, of some nature, and when mine were closed with all the stuff that was in here and everything, geez Louise, I can't get this stuff out. Alright, so of course we didn't have the antenna on, but when this was closed, these cables apparently hit this knob and it broke it to where when I used this knob for the first time, the knob, when I let go, the spring action in it released and flicked the knob end off, so it was broken. I did repair that. I used some of the welder glue that I use on many other things that I get via Amazon. 2 tubes have lasted me forever. Put that on there, let it set for 12 hours, and then that was fixed. So now we'll put that stuff away. Let's start with the battery so we can dispose of that. It is a little bit of a different size and shape from what we're used to with Fat Shark batteries. Here's a comparison if you want to see them side by side in any way. They both have buttons on them to where you can tell how they light up. This one is, the Fat Shark is a bit brighter in my visual view, and this is a little bit dimmer. And honestly, this battery has been a little bit of a surprise, but this one's been used a lot more, so I think as far as use goes, I shouldn't compare them directly, but I will tell you, I charged this when I got it, and I haven't recharged it since in my use, and I've been using it here for a couple of weeks off and on. As I've made other flight videos, I've stuck with my Fat Shark goggles, primarily for the reason the DVR. The DVR in the Topsky goggles does not work very well still. So it's got a nice long lead on it. It is silicone based, very rubbery, very flimsy. That should not cause any sort of discomfort issues when you're wearing the goggles. Even if it were to be up against your head or face in some way, it's not going to feel bad, or it's not going to push on you very hard, because it is so soft and it is so bendable. The antenna it comes with is a little bit longer than normal, and one thing about the antenna is when I saw the marketing materials for this, it shows on the GearBest website that it has dual antennas or diversity, and that is not the case, is what's shipped. So I think as far as GearBest goes, they need to tighten up their pictures. I think they just kind of skim those off the Topsky website and do with whatever they want. But when you order yours, unless it says it comes with diversity, it does not come with diversity. The antenna is circular polarized. It seems to work just fine. It is right-hand polarized. Let me see if I can get this off again for you real quick. So this is a quick look at the antenna. You can see that the leaves are leaning towards the right from left to right. So that is a right-hand polarized, and you can get the cap on and off. We have a little bit of metal and some goopy glue. While we're here talking about the receiver, the bay isn't necessarily secured. You can see we have some movement in here. That's not that's not unusual for receivers like this. And we'll just take a quick look in here. You can see that we have 2 holes in our bay door, but we just have the single module, and it shoves in and it comes out very easily. I wanted to show you that a LaForge module does not fit even if you put it upside down, and I think that's a big miss. I think coming into the market and expecting everybody to buy specialized receivers or receivers that have an upside down orientation that are already on the market and well established, it tends to corner you a little bit. So only the people that would move to this would be people who either don't mind having an upside down receiver, have a receiver they like that already fits, which I believe is fairly limited, or you have to buy one of their receivers. So it kind of corners you into a market, and therefore, as a manufacturer trying to sell these things, it also corners you into who would be in your market to purchase your goggles. So I think that should be rethought and reworked. We need the pins over here. The bay needs to fit all the modules that are currently on the market. While we're here at the front, I hope this comes through on camera, but there appears to be some sort of material they have put in the faceplate here, and this probably shores up light leak. You cannot see it from the bays. You can see that it's got the hard plastic materials, and maybe that's what it is, and I just can't tell the difference between the look over here and how it looks over here. The material looks slightly different, but I think in previous versions I recall people talking about having a lot of light leak issues. I didn't find that to be the case, especially through the front or the top. I didn't see any light coming through these whatsoever. And speaking of light leak issues, the faceplate also goes around your face very, very well, and you won't get, or you shouldn't, and in my experience, I did not get any light leak. I have more light leak on both the other goggles than I do on these. This is a much larger faceplate than we have on the other goggles as far as the amount of material all the way around. So for me in this, it was really dark. When you don't have the goggles powered on, it's really dark in here, and that's a good thing. Before I get onto the faceplate and the fitment issues, your SD card goes in right here in this little head tracker bay. We do have an SD card that goes right in. I didn't have any problems with recording or anything, but the DVR is not great. We'll get into that a little bit more here when we do the reception view, but I'll tell you right off the bat, I was not happy with the DVR. Typically, DVRs in just about all goggles they seem to indicate more breakup in your video signal than what you actually see in the goggles. So if you have any breakup, it looks like in the DVR you have a lot of breakup. If you have no breakup, then the DVR reflects that for the most part. Also, the DVR, the resolution is 1280 by 720, but the bit rate is very, very low. I have 2457 kilobits per second on the bit rate. The frame rate is 30 frames per second, which is fine, and it is a little bit more standard than the Fat Shark goggles. This is a sensor that detects whether the goggles are on and off, and that's a pretty cool feature, kind of an added value thing, but it's also a point of failure, and my concern with the point of failure is when it does fail, you know, at some point it could fail. It could take 15 years for all I know, but if it fails, does it fail to where the displays are on? Because that would be critical. Otherwise, if this little piece here fails, then you've got dead goggles, and you've got to send them in for repair unless you're handy enough to repair them yourself. So cool feature. I hope it's programmed in a way to where if it fails, that the LED displays stay on. You can see this is the faceplate with the foam again, and it stays on very well. It doesn't come off. You can actually pull it off fairly easily, and it goes on. Hopefully I can do this. You can see there's a couple little tabs in the little faceplate, and you just get those on and kind of massage it around. Whoops. And it goes on pretty well. You know, I didn't have any problems with it. This is the foam that came with it out of the package. You can see the density or thickness thereof, and it just goes right on there. Previously, I think this had been kind of an odd little threading scheme. I thought that was a miss. You can see the size of the screens. Unfortunately, this does have cutouts for diopters, but traditional Fat Shark diopters don't fit. I have heard that people have been 3D printing cases for diopters. I don't know how it's going to work because these lens openings are also bigger than the diopters, at least when I was taking a look at them. So if you need diopters, I would caution against purchasing these goggles and thinking the diopters are going to work. The other thing to note is this does come down a fair bit on our noses. And in my particular case, with my size of nose, which my mom says it's normal size nose, I don't necessarily have a big or small nose. I think it's just a regular Western nose. But this presses down enough on my nostril, on the nose, just below the bridge of my nose, that I do find when I have these goggles on that I am flying with my mouth open. And I'm interested to see what that's going to yield come summertime when the bugs are really out. Will bugs be finding a home on our tongue or on our teeth because we're wearing these goggles? Of course, you could take some scissors and trim this down to your liking as well. That won't harm the goggles. You do have to be careful about how deep you go because there is a limited amount of Velcro to adhere the foam to the rubberized faceplate. And I don't think you would want to fly without any foam on these because then you would have the backside of the Velcro. We would have this part on our face, and I don't think that would be nearly as comfortable. I didn't breeze over the switches. The switches are pretty normal. We've got volume if you use audio over here. I did not test audio because in my flying experience, I don't have any equipment set up and ready to go that has audio, and I have to mount a new camera and tear down a quad to get that done. So you might want to look elsewhere for any information about the audio. These are your control sticks. You do your channel changing, and also you can go from 4:3, which is a crop view, to 16:9, which is the widescreen view. You can change your channels and bands over here. Your search function comes from holding this back, and then I think it's holding this back. Yeah, holding this back, and then it starts to search, but the search is painfully slow. Whenever I would do the search, like in my testing here, you could almost hear the Jeopardy song playing in your head, kind of do, 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 and it would beep and scan, and then it would go to the next channel and beep and scan, and it was not fast or fluid by any stretch. Matter of fact, I noticed with my particular set that the goggles seemed to get stuck on 5880 all the time, and I would see it on 5880 for 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and I'm like, come on, move on to the next one. So the search function, at least in my case, I thought was almost worthless because there was one time when I spent 15 minutes trying to get it to lock onto a channel, and I eventually just abandoned that and just found the channel manually. So if you're someone who auto search is just a much, again, I think you need to look at a lot of other reviews, and you need to be very careful about whether it works or not, or how it's mentioned in the review. This side over here gets into your DVR, and that works just fine as far as the function of getting to the DVR. The playback, they seem to have fixed that in version 2 to where it doesn't play back at half speed. It seemed to play back normally. It's got a little bit of a nice interface. I would show you through the goggles, and I did try recording a bunch of different stuff of looking through the goggles, but I don't know what kind of camera setup it would take to actually see much of an image in here. I played with the IPD, which it does have IPDs for moving in and out, and we'll cover this in a minute. But I struggled quite a bit as much as I tried to actually show you what's on screen, and we'll talk about the screen here in just a little bit. Also on the bottom, I already mentioned the IPDs and the fan. The fan switch is on the bottom of the nose piece, which I found actually a lot more handy than the fan on my Fat Shark goggles. I kind of am annoyed at the fan on the Fat Shark goggles. We have this secondary battery plug that we have to plug in, and then we've got to press this button. And if you have fog on the screen, you have to give it a moment before it starts to take care of it, or you take the goggles off and you put the fan to your ear to make sure it's on. There might be mods and stuff out to make that to where it's much more apparent that the fan is on, so you don't have to take off the goggles, but I don't have any of those going on this particular set. So I think the fan implementation is a little bit better in this case. I didn't find the fan to be annoying. As far as the volume of the fan, I didn't find it to be blowing too hard to where it was distracting, but I did find that the fan vibrates and you can feel it on your face. It's not so strong that it distracts you, because when I was actively flying, I didn't find that the vibration from the fan bothered me at all. I just noticed it when I had it on the desk and I was doing some testing. I was like, I can feel this vibrating, and I put it on my face, and I can feel that through the foam too. I have to question the quality of the bearing or the fan itself to see how well balanced that is. I think that's a very inexpensive part that, it's a little bit of a fit and finish thing, the fan causing vibrations, and some people might be able to feel it in the Fat Sharks, but I cannot. But I think they just need to do a better job of picking their fan and the bearing that the fan is using to make sure that the vibrations, at least when it's new, you don't feel the vibrations. We have other stuff down here for the head tracker. This is where our battery plugs in. We've got audio and video in up here. We've got HDMI. We've got our audio just for like an earbud if you fly like Mr. Steele does, where you use onboard audio for your machine. Again, I did not test that. And then we have our switch to turn off our receiver on or off. I've never used that either. Maybe you guys can tell me why you would want to turn that off. I've never come into a scenario where I wanted to turn my receiver off. So leave a comment down below if you have seen that scenario before, and I can learn something from you. As far as the strap goes, it's pretty typical Fat Shark style straps. You can see that we've got the separation down in here, and that's how you thread your straps through to make sure they hold. I didn't find it was too loose or too strong. I thought it worked just fine. I think the red color, the color is something that you have to judge whether you like it or not. You can see I've actually got quite a large head because I've got things kind of elongated here to go around my big noggin. And then your battery goes in this little cavity right over here, and that works fine. I didn't have any problems with that falling out, whether it was on my head or taking it off my head or carrying it around. The battery stayed in here just fine. Of course, over time these straps do get kind of loose, so you may have to replace them. There's a number of different places where I think you can buy other straps that are have more personality possibly in them. And here's a quick look at the size. I would say they're probably in the case of this Topsky, just a couple of millimeters bigger than the Fat Shark ones, but I suspect if you bought some for the Fat Shark that they would work just fine because they would be a little bit smaller in the Topsky goggles. The last thing I think I should mention is the DVR. I was severely disappointed in the DVR, and I think if you are someone who is going to be using the DVR to publish videos in any way, shape, or form, and that is a priority on your list of features, that again, you'll probably want to skip these goggles, because in the footage that I'm showing you, the reception that I was seeing in the goggles is more like you were seeing in the left-hand frame. What you see in the right-hand frame, especially when it shifts over, like the entire image kind of rolls over, I didn't see that at all. So I think the DVR has a flawed design, and I'm not certain they can fix that with software. That could be a wiring issue. So that's something to consider very much. I know for me, because I do micros all the time, so 100% of my footage, well, not 100%, nearly 100% of my footage that I post on my channel is from DVR, so there's no way that I could use these goggles to make videos and publish them on my channel. I think if you only use it for purposes of recovery, that it might work. But again, the reception can get so poor where in the goggles it's fine. So you could be flying in an area that your reception is very, very flyable, but yet the DVR recording is so poor, it might not be that helpful in recovery situations either. So overall, I applaud them for jumping into a very difficult market. Pretty much the only company that seems to have been able to get into the niche and gain much traction has been Amazon. But having another maker in the market is going to be good for us as consumers and hopefully drive the price down, because the Amway goggles you get for around $300. Sometimes you can find them lower. You can get them somewhere around, $289 or something like that from time to time, depending upon which website you go to. I do like the fact that these are lighter to wear, and they're also a little bit smaller than my Fat Sharks, but I tend to use my Fat Sharks because the V2 faceplate that I have on my Fat Shark goggles, which I need to make sure I show you, this does not come stock. You have to buy this after the fact, so this is another $25. So as far as value goes, if you buy a Fat Shark, if you buy the cores, I think they're $3.99, and then you have to add a receiver. You can add various receivers. In my case, I added the LaForge module with diversity. That's going to run you another $100, so you're at $500. And then I put a faceplate on mine, the $25 V2 faceplate, and that was another $25. So you've got $525 before you've added antennas, which you probably get into another $25 or $30 there, maybe even more depending upon what you purchase. So $550 plus. These get to be very expensive, but they also work very well. One thing, I'm sorry I missed it, is field of view. When you put this on your face, the field of view is very, very large. It's very immersive. With that, you also have to kind of adjust the goggles to where you can see all of the screen inside, because I found that I couldn't just put the goggles on where they felt normally fell on my face. I had to kind of adjust them and squiggle them around on my face to make sure I could see the bottom of the screen, like where my OSD from my vehicle is, or the top of the screen where additional OSD information is, and one shot, so I wasn't having to move the goggle to see that. I could actually adjust them just right and then get my eye to where I could see both the top and bottom of the screen. That's very important to me as a pilot. It may not be for you, but it's something that I noted that I did have to adjust them, or spend a little bit more time adjusting them to where I could see the entirety of the field of view. The field of view, I believe, is 42 degrees, which is the same as the Fat Sharks, but I tell you, it looks a lot bigger. It also looks very, very clear. I think something that they've done for the displays inside here is quite nice. Unfortunately, it's wrapped in a number of other features that don't work out very well. So hopefully they have learned from their V1 and their V2, and they will continue to iterate and make better and better goggles, and we can get something that's more competitive with the Fat Shark goggles and the Amway goggles, because right now I just don't see this competing with those goggles. I think they're still in the early stages, and unfortunately, we think about the Fat Shark goggles and how many iterations they've had. I think they've been doing, for the last 2 or 3 iterations, at least 3 different versions. So you have different field of views, you have different feature sets, you have different looks and styles. So they have a huge design and engineering advantage over really anybody else. And Topsky may have taken many of their cues, but they obviously didn't take all of them, because they've missed the mark on a number of different occasions. And we're comparing, much more expensive. So if we just want to look at the cost and we say, okay, just for cost, if you're looking at the Topsky F7X versus the Amway goggles, which one do you get? Well, it's an easy choice as far as I'm concerned. I get the Amway goggles. If I'm just choosing between these two, I get the Amway goggles, because all of the features work. They work normally, and you don't have any surprises. Whereas I think there are just too many surprises here. I think they're better than their first attempt. At least from what I read. Like I said, I didn't do extensive research into V1. It's just kind of what I casually saw. This is going in the right direction, but it's still not worth more than $300. At what price point would this be worth purchasing? It's really hard for me to say, but nothing close to the Amways. I would say at minimum $50 less than whatever you can find the Amways for. So if the Amways are selling for $300, at most $250 for these. I know it comes with a receiver, but so does the Amways. It comes with diversity. So if this came with diversity and a module that worked really, really well, and they could fix the DVR, then maybe it becomes a better competitor to this. But the DVR in this is so bad, and the fact that this is locking you in pretty much to just a couple of modules, definitely not the LaForge module, those are kind of determining factors that I think devalue the product a bit, and some of the failures as far as the engineering and design. In short, close, but not quite there yet. I hope, like I said, I hope they continue to iterate and try to grasp the corner of the market, but that's got to be terribly expensive as a company, and who knows how many people are actually buying these and would buy again. We have a lot of reviews that are out, and I don't think those reviews are overly positive, so that's going to hurt the company itself. But I still hope that at some point they make another version with more design cues from other goggle manufacturers, add some features that they can add some value to it, and bring the price point to where it's either hyper competitive against Fat Shark goggles, or it's really competitive against the Amway goggles. Otherwise, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to get any traction within the market. So those are my thoughts. If you have experience with these, or if you have information that you've learned from other review videos, please leave that in the section down below. Any other information that you might have about the goggles that we need to share with people who might visit the video, also leave that down below. I accept all criticisms, and I never claim to be 100% right. I do make mistakes, I do overlook things, and I want to know what you guys think and what your experience is if you have a set of these. And even if you don't have a set, what have you learned through other review videos? Make this video, actually I'm crowdsourcing the value of my video by asking you to contribute down below. So please do that. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.